Hello and welcome to Rust Locker, and in today's video I'm going to be working on the MX5. I've bought myself a little bit of kit from a up-and-coming new startup fabricator called FPM Garage, and they make bits and pieces for MX5s. So I've actually bought their rear crash bar / jacking point. There's a picture of it here. So at the moment, whenever I need to jack the rear end of the car up, I'm actually using the diff, which a lot of people do recommend as a jacking point. But the problem is, even with a low profile jack, it's difficult to get the jack underneath the exhaust pipe to get to the diff to then jack it up. Whereas this jacking point is going to be further at the back. It's going to be a hell of an improvement on having to jack the car up using the diff. Now the bash bar doesn't actually come painted. I think you can pay extra for painted, but I thought I'll just have the bare metal one and give it a spray myself. So I'm going to go down into the garden and give it a few coats of paint before I start fitting it onto the car. Okay, so this is the crash bar, but as you can see there's a little bit of surface rust starting to come up, and it's all bare metal, so it does need to be protected. So what I'm going to be doing today is sanding this down, spraying it up. It doesn't need to be a perfect job because most of this is going to be behind the bumper. Just the jack stand part here is what's going to be sort of showing underneath the bumper there probably, so as long as this all looks black and nice, then it should be good. Okay, so I've just pulled out the boot trim here, and as you'll notice, the battery is disconnected. It's actually on charge at the moment, but I'm going to be disconnecting the rear lights and stuff, so always a good idea to disconnect the negative on your battery terminal anyway with these little screw rivets, so I'm going to work on that. Okay, so as you can see, I've got one light out. It's actually fairly straightforward and simple. There's a screw at the top here, this one's missing, so I need to find something for that. And at the back here you've got this white plug and two bolts, one there and one just there. You undo those two bolts, undo this plug, and then you'll be able to get the light out from this way. Okay, now if there's a little plastic like grommet thing there that just kind of helps secure it a little bit, so you just need to push that in, and then it takes a little bit of force. It's a little bit of tapping on these bolts. And also you just want to push those wires in a little bit. and then as it comes out, just like that. So these lights could do with a bit of a clean up before I put them back in. Okay, so the next thing is you want to come around the side and remove the mud flaps if you've got them, just by undoing the scrivets, I think they're called, or the screw type rivets, or whatever fasteners you've managed to stick your mud flaps on with. So on mine there's one there and there's one there. I think there should be one there. Now you might have to remove your rear wheel if you can't get to these screws, but if you're lucky you can just use just a screw head like this, and then hopefully you can just about do it without taking the wheel off. Yeah. So yeah, if you can't get them out with just a small stubby screwdriver or something, then you're going to have to remove your rear wheels, unfortunately, which means jacking it up and taking those off just to get to those. But I've actually been quite lucky now today, and I think these will come out like that. And then underneath the mud flap as well there's a bolt just up under there. And then that will allow you to pull back. Oh, there's one more screw just there, one more scrivet thing there at the top on the wheel arch liner. Okay, so that's broken, that needs replacing, but as you can see it just wasn't going to unscrew, so you may break some clips. Okay, now that that's all undone, you can pull back the wheel arch liner like that, and that will expose a little bolt right there, which is a 8mm, I think. Okay, so now the bumper is detached from the sides. Right, now this is the bit I don't want to do, and that is to remove the number plate, because as you can see mine is stuck on. Unfortunately it's going to have to come off because there are 2 screws to undo behind the number plate, so I'm just going to have to carefully peel this off and hope I don't destroy anything. Okay, so here we have 2 very rusty Torx head screws. I'm going to be lucky if these come out. Okay, so I've been proper lucky, almost rounded off this, I think it's a T27 or a T30. It's a star 30 shape. But anyway, literally just on the limit, managing to get it out. Yeah, so I spoke too soon and rounded it off straight after I just filmed that last bit, but luckily I managed to get it out enough to get some mole grips on there just to finish off that last bit. But yeah, I'm going to have to find replacements for these because that is completely mashed up. Okay, so then you want to go under the bumper, and there should be little screw rivets holding the bumper to the crash bar, but on mine they're all missing, so that makes things a little bit easier. Okay, and now I think it should just be a case of pulling the bumper backwards off of some clips. Yeah, it just kind of pulled off of these little sort of rubber bung things which held it on. So this is the stock crash bar. and that's what we're going to be removing to replace with the FPM one. So next step is to unbolt this. Okay, well these top bolts were not too bad. You can get a socket on those, but deep down in there you can see there's another bolt, and you can't, unless you've got a really good small low profile socket set, you're not going to get one in there. So I'm just using a ring spanner and a lot of will, just getting it a quarter of a turn at a time. Okay, well, yeah, one of the bolts broke off, but the rest came out alright, and we get new hardware with the FPM Crash bar, so won't need to use these bolts anyway, hopefully. So I thought I'd give it a bit of a clean behind here just to get some of the grime off before I put the bumper back on. And as you can see, we've got a bit of a rust issue going on along here. I've been sanding it a little bit just to see how bad it is. Luckily it's just really mainly this lower sort of lip. So I could probably just cut this out and be done with it. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sand this back to bare metal as best as I can, and then treat it with cure rust, because obviously none of this is going to be seen. Just want it to be protected and not get any worse. Right, so I know this isn't a proper job and it's probably going to come back, but all I'm doing at the moment is just staying on top of things until I can afford a full restoration. So I'm just going to get rid of these other little crusty bits, and then I'm going to cure rust this and let that seep in, and maybe put a bit of spray over it. Hopefully that'll keep it going for a little bit longer. Okay, so the cure rust is doing its thing there. Starting to go black. But wouldn't you just know it, I haven't actually got any paint here, so I'm going to have to nip to Halfords, get some paint, come back and carry on. So I've got some new trim screws and stuff, bit of tape to stick the number plate back on, and then obviously paint. Right, back to it. Right, so I'm not going to be masking anything off or doing anything properly, so this is what I'm going to call a ghetto spray job. Bag up what you don't want to get sprayed. Cardboard box to defend against overspray. It's runny and it's crappy, but it'll do. Yeah, see, it's not too bad. So if you're wondering about the weight difference, I would say it's about the same. There's not much in it between the standard one and the FPM one, so not going to be adding any weight anyway. We've got a couple of issues. So first of all is that the bar actually fouls on the lip here. I think you can just about see just there where it's starting to scratch, but it literally is just touching. It does fit on, but it's just really tight up against there. The lower two bolt holes don't line up, so I think I'm just going to have to remove the lower bolt completely somehow, and then drill new holes for the lower ones. The top ones line up okay, so that's why I can't really understand what's going on. I assumed it was just going to go line up with the stock bolts, but it appears that the bottom bolt doesn't line up properly and isn't going to line up properly on this side. So essentially what they've done is they've put 4 holes where I thought the bolt should go, and then there's an extra hole just above it. So I think the way you make this fit is to actually cut this bolt off here, use this stock bolt here, use a new bit of hardware there, and then drill a new hole and drill this new hole into the bodywork and use that with a bolt instead. So that means I've got to cut off these two bolts. That's where the stock bolt was that I've cut off. That's where the new hole is, which is going to line up with this top hole here. One in there, and then the top stock ones will fit. So I've got to do the same on this side. So I've got a step drill bit here, goes up to 10mm, which is what I need. So first of all, I'm just going to widen this one. And obviously there's some more rust work to do there, and then I'm going to make a new hole here. Okay, so now I'm doing this all backwards. I've just had to cure rust these holes just where I've drilled into it, just get into between the grooves. I've used that same sander you saw me using earlier just to grind down the bolts that were sticking out. So hopefully with the stock 2 top ones and the new hardware at the bottom, they should fit on now. Okay, so things are going quite well. Got a few bolts lined up and in. I've got all 4 on this side with the new hardware down the bottom there. But unfortunately I messed up the cutting of one of the holes and it's slightly off. So I'm going to have to re-drill that and make that a little bit bigger. But it's not too big of a deal. I'm just going to be having to reuse the old nuts on the top, unfortunately, because these bolts are actually captive bolts. They're like welded into the chassis or something, so I don't really want to get involved with removing those if I don't have to. So I'm using these same old nuts on the stock bolts and then using the new hardware down the bottom where I can. Right, so we're on and we're all secure. Looking pretty good. Really do hope the bumper's going to go back on now. Straight over, fits good. You can't even really see that you've got it unless you look right underneath there. Nice and discreet. Okay, so now I've just got to put the fixings back on the wheel arch, sort out something for these 2 bolts, replace the things that are missing underneath, the clips, and yeah, and find another screw for up here. Okay, so getting somewhere now. Bumper is pretty much back on. Putting it back on is the reverse of how it came off, so you want to bolt up, get it hooked onto these clips on the side here. Once that's hooked onto those, then you can do up the bolts around the sides and the bottoms and these bolts here. For these bolts here I've replaced them. This is what they look like. This is the good one. So I've just replaced those. Luckily any M6 bolt will fit in there, so that's just chucked a couple of bolts with washers in there. Be much easier to remove in future. So now I've just got to put the lights back in and then get some new sticky tape for the number plate. Feed the wire through. You just want to make sure this rubber bung thing is pulled through a little bit so it makes a bit of a seal, and then do up the bolts. Don't forget to reconnect it. Right, so now I've got the wonderful task of getting this old number plate sticky stuff off so I can put some new stuff down. And I mean the tackiness is completely gone now that I've had it exposed whilst working on it. So I want to try and get as much of this off as I can with a plastic scraper and some alcohol. And some towels. And when it gets to like this gloopy stage where you've sort of taken off the top layers and you're just left with the gluey bit, I find the best technique is to just use your thumb and kind of just peel it like that with your thumb, kind of roll it, and then it starts to unstick itself. Right, so as you can see, now I've completely got rid of all the sticky crap that's off of there, and now I can put the new number plate back on. So I've got some new sticky pads from Halfords. I'm going to put them on the number plate first and then put the number plate on the car. So try not to touch the sticky bit. Not bad for doing it by eye. Okay, so now the only thing left to do is to tidy it up a bit and put the interior trim back. Also I need to sort out some new clips for around here in the arch, but that's just new plastic trim clips. I've got some of them, put those in a minute. Now from the back you can't even see that the crash bar is installed. Down here you can see where the jack-in point is, so that's going to be a great improvement, being able to jack up off of this rather than trying to get underneath the exhaust to the diff, which is where I normally jack it up from the rear. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up, leave a comment if you like, and I will catch you on the next one.